Hi there. My name is Tyler Finn. I'm your host, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Abstract Podcast. Near the end of each episode, I like to ask my guests for book recommendations. Since it's summertime and you might be looking for a new read for your August vacation, we thought you might enjoy a compilation of some of my favorite recent recommendations from guests. Hope you enjoy. First up, we have Rob Chesnut. Rob was general counsel and chief ethics officer at Airbnb. He also wrote a book called Intentional Integrity about some typical ethics and integrity-related situations that business leaders face and the right way to approach them. Listen to him chat with me about his process for writing the book, what the book's about, as well as some other recommendations he has for books that you might find interesting. Let's talk about the book for a second. When did you decide that you wanted to write it? Was this as you were starting to leave Airbnb? Did you think it would be a great thing to do there? How did this come about?
My wife wanted me to write a book. And my wife really early was a book agent. That was early in her career. She was actually the book agent for Carlos Santana, Kamala Harris's book.
Wow.
A number of big league books. So she knew the industry. And I started telling her the story of what we were doing in Airbnb. She said, no other company's doing this. This is a story that needs to be told. And I'm like, yeah. I got a day job. I got this general counsel thing that's keeping me up half the night as it is. But she wouldn't let it go. And she said, I'll get you a writer and I'll get you a major publishing deal if you'll do this. I'm like, yeah, honey, you get me a writer and a major publishing deal and I'll do the book. And of course, 2 months later, we had a writer and a major publishing deal. And I did it while I was general counsel, and I did it not really thinking about anything beyond just getting the book done. I gave the writer every Monday night for a year. And I spent every Monday night with the writer doing it, and the writer was terrific. She captured my voice really well. Mm-hmm. And then the problem really came up was that I really loved the project and really recognized that it could make a difference. And then I also realized that publishers don't market books. The author has to do it. So if I was going to do anything, I was going to have to go out, do podcasts, do book tour, do speaking in order to make the book go. So the book was either going to die because I was going to go back to my, to stay being a general counsel, or I'd been a lawyer at that point. I'd been a lawyer for 35 years. And it was I've been killing myself working the long hours, a lot of stress. I'd like to spend a little more time with my kids. Why not make the book the next chapter? Because again, I've been doing the Airbnb thing for a little over 5 years. So why not?
That's interesting. I like that answer. That's good. Okay. Besides your own, if you have a book recommendation for our audience, it doesn't have to be a business book. It could just be something fun, but whatever you've got.
There's so many great ones. Anything by Adam Grant. If you can go read Adam Grant's Give and Take.
Yes.
Think Again, for example, a wonderful book. There's a book called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle that's really wonderful if you're thinking about how to build a culture inside of a company that it gets the most out of people. I've got there's a great book on career. If you're thinking about your career, if you're feeling a little lost in life and you're trying to think about, what should you do next? There's a book called Ikigai, Ikigai. It's a Japanese concept around your purpose in life that I think really helps provide a framework for thinking about what you would like to do. Hold on, I'll give you 2 more. I'm looking at my bookshelf for those of you who can't see me here. There's a book called Multipliers. It's by Liz Wiseman, and it's about this idea of as a leader, you're either getting a fraction of someone's abilities, or you are actually making them even better, greater than they thought they could be. Like Walt Whitman, for me, pushed me and challenged me to do things I didn't think I could do. So she was a multiplier. But there are a number of leaders who I think don't get the most out of their people. And Liz Wiseman's Multipliers is, I think, an outstanding book to help you become a better leader. The last one I'll pick is Matthew Syed, S-Y-E-D, a book called Rebel Ideas. So a really great thinker about, in today's world where diversity, equity, inclusion has sort of become a bad phrase, what does diversity mean? And how can it be? I think there's actually not that much difference between hiring with a diversity in mind and hiring with excellence and merit in mind. I actually think the two concepts are in many ways synonymous. So his work will help you think in that regard.
Next up, we have my friend Dana Rao. Dana recently retired as general counsel of Adobe. Dana doesn't read business books, but he's got a recommendation or two for you that are a little more fun. Do you have, you're writing a book.
Yeah.
Do you have a book that you'd want to recommend to our audience? This could be a business book, or it could just be something fun that you're reading right now.
I don't read business books.
That's not a bad character trait,
I do, yeah. Well, so I just finished reading. My wife loves this author, Liane Moriarty, and I now love her too on her recommendation. I literally just finished yesterday, so I'll just recommend it. This book called Here One Moment. It's her latest book.
Okay.
And so it's a regular fiction. She's not science fiction or anything, but this particular book is a very fun premise in the first page, so I'm not giving anything away. But on a plane, a woman who you don't know who she is, but appears to be some kind of fortune teller, tells everybody on the plane how they're going to die and when they're going to die.
Okay.
And then the rest of the book is sort of about the consequences of that.
Wow.
All those predictions. Great book. I actually was up till midnight 2 nights ago finishing it because I was so taken by it. But she's an amazing writer and I would recommend it.
Earlier this year, I sat down with Shashank Bijapur, SpotDraft's co-founder and CEO, and Akshay Verma, our COO, for a conversation around how they've helped build SpotDraft and where we're headed. Near the end of the conversation, I asked both of them to recommend a book that's been important to them in their careers.
I think for me, the transition from lawyer to founder, the book that made that happen for me was 0 to 1. I think it was foundational in more than one ways. I still keep going back to that book. And the second one is The Hard Thing, about the hard things, by Ben Horowitz. I think it's just, running a company is hard and you need to take a lot of hard decisions. Just getting that decision matrix done right, it's a great book to read. It's almost, you can't read it page to page. You just have to open the part that's really problematic at this point and just read that one chapter and then close it back up.
It's a good textbook.
Yeah.
Mine's Getting Naked by Peter Lencioni. Once I read The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, and my former manager at Facebook was really big on the lessons that came out of that book. He wrote a second book called Getting Naked, which is about a management consulting company. And the protagonist goes through a pretty amazing character arc in how he learns to navigate and push back on clients and customers. And how in the end, that actually ends up getting him a lot more business and amazing satisfaction out of his work. And it's something that I'm hoping to take to our sales and customer success teams.
Next up, we have Tim Hirsch. Tim is the general counsel of Mars Science Diagnostics. Tim offers a very personal recommendation to our audience.
Yes, I recently read this book called 100 Saturdays.
Oh, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Which,
something new.
There you go. So it's a really fascinating story of this 90-year-old woman who grew up in Rhodes, which is an island off of Greece, in the Jewish community there, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, as part of the Jewish community, which was very small, and it used to be owned by the island was part of Turkey. Then Italy invaded it in the early 1900s, and she ended up like all the other Jews on Rhodes being deported to Auschwitz, and she ended up surviving and made her way to New York and lived a really long life. And she met this journalist, book writer, one day. They sat down at her house on a Saturday, and it led to 100 Saturdays of them coming together to have him interview her about her life in Rhodes, and turned into this book, which is fascinating. It's an incredible sort of snapshot. She sort of goes through her life as a Jew on Rhodes, which was a really unique time that we're probably never going to see again. But this island where they went from having no electricity, no running water under the Turks, to being invaded by the Italians, and all of a sudden having this renaissance, and being very prosperous in the 1920s, to in 15 years being all essentially massacred and exterminated.
Wow.
On what was the longest journey of any Jewish population to get to Auschwitz, right? Because they went from the south of Greece, almost northwest Africa, to all the way to Poland. And it's a beautifully written book. The story, she's a beautiful storyteller, and it's just a wonderful, wonderful story. And it's called 100 Saturdays.
Great recommendation. Manu Kanwar is the founder and leader of LexSolutions, a talent, technology, and culture-focused consulting group. Manu is a real expert on company cultures, how they go wrong, and ways that you might be able to turn them around and make them right again. He offers 3 recommendations of books that have been meaningful to him as he's navigated an, at times, challenging and stressful career.
So I want to give you 3 now, actually.
Great.
I thought I was going to give you 2, but I'm going to give you 3. So the first one would be by Gabor Mate, and his latest book is The Myth of Normal.
Okay.
So Gabor Mate is like world-renowned authority on, first he was a world-renowned authority on addiction. And in ways of treating addiction, he found that we shouldn't be treating addiction, we should be treating the pain. So that led him to become the world authority on trauma. And the way he redefines trauma is that it's not necessarily a terrible event that happens to some people. It's just any event or circumstances in which a child's needs went unmet. That creates a traumatic event, that creates a traumatic circumstance that then leads that person to have like vulnerabilities that can persist over time, and negative self-worth and whatever it might be, or have negative toxicity that I need to do this in order to feel successful, I need to be that to be happy, I need to have this to feel content. None of these things are true. And so those are myths, but also the fact that there is a normal that we all should subscribe to is a myth. And so he talks about that at length with lots of other perspectives and stuff. It's a brilliant book and a really important perspective. The second one, just because I've only just finished it, is ADHD 2.0. So it's about ADHD by 2 authors who really made the ADHD, more well known in the world, and they're just now coming back to say, obviously, there's a lot more being written and talked about ADHD, but this is what we see from our perspective. And it's just a brilliant book for people who think that they may be suffering, and the people who think that, they may have a partner or a child or others that may be. And actually, I think for any good leader to read and just understand what it means, because we talk about ADHD superpowers, but no one really gets what it actually means. And there are lots of negative traits and challenges that people with ADHD suffer from that are not well understood, that people just write off, that you need to man up and change and get better organized or whatever, which is just not helpful. And I mean, I'm not diagnosed yet. I'm waiting for a diagnosis, but it's something that I'm starting to learn about.
Interesting.
Not just for myself, but for other people. So, I may or may not be, but it certainly resonates really, really strongly.
Yeah.
And then the third one, just because, like I mentioned him earlier, Paul Gilbert, he's brought out a few books which are all just beautiful. But the one he brought out last year was called The Mentor, and it's beautifully presented. It's just like beautiful writings, and he talks about his journey as a sort of coach and a mentor. But while he takes you through an art gallery, essentially, and it's just like it's his life story written through that, and it's just beautiful. And I think really, really poignant, especially at a time like now.
Alex Herrity leads legal ops for Adidas, the global clothing and sneaker brand. Alex offers a couple of tech-inspired fiction picks for our list of book recs.
I guess just reading wise, like just in terms of fiction, I read I probably everyone's read this recently because it was kind of a bestseller, but Tomorrow.
Oh, I haven't read this yet.
Really good. If you're into this kind of space, it's all about like video games from like the 90s and like a story around two developers making that. Really, really good. So if you're into fiction, that's just one fresh off my mind that I read recently and enjoyed. And then kind of stuff in this space. Someone who's really good is Alex Hamilton from Radiant. He wrote the book Sign Here, which is all about contract processes. And basically he's got a sort of fixed fee style law firm, and it's all about kind of it's all of the non-techie part of the contracting process around like, you know, how you can how contracts should be. They should be these like relational documents where people, so you shouldn't draft them in an adversarial way. You should be drafting them with the least amount of friction while still protecting your needs. So if you're into contracting and tech and this stuff, it's not about the tech, but it's about the content in a different way, in a fresh way. So I totally recommend that. And there's one more that I'm reading right now, which is quite good, which is like How to Build a Second Brain. So I'm really interested in sort of knowledge management at the moment. That's kind of one of my topics that's personally interesting to me as well as professionally. And his thing is just basically just a concept for like what you should outsource to like a database and how you might do that and have a process for that. But then how that might then work with like a team of different people. Again, I think super relevant for this era that we're now going in, where we're knowledge workers. Like I never got called a knowledge worker until ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I'm a knowledge worker. So and it's like, what am I doing with all this knowledge and where does it sit? And how is this AI going to work with this? So I think if you're going to read anything about knowledge and how you might use your own knowledge, that's been cool. I'm kind of halfway through that one, so I'd give that a recommendation as well.
Keita de Souza is the general counsel of Ryse. She and I had a really meaningful and candid conversation around wellness in the workplace and protecting your mental health and wellness when you're in high pressure situations and high stress jobs. Along those lines, she offers a number of book recommendations for our audience.
Yes. So, like a true Gemini, I have two types. So I did prepare for this. So I'm reading and I'm looking at my notes here because I don't want to mispronounce the name. The author's name is Alison Frigale, I believe is the pronunciation. The book is called Likable Badass. So this book was recommended to me by a group of women that I recently met, and a bunch of people from this group said this is the book that they are reading or have read or they just really loved. And so I picked it up. I'm only on chapter 3, Tyler, and I'm already going to read it again because there's a lot going on. And then B, I know this is a book I'm going to come back to yearly. It is.
That's high praise.
Yes. So the book is kind of lightweight blowing my mind, and it's just chapter 3. So
I might have to pick that one up. That sounds really interesting.
Please do. Likable Badass. Let me know what you think. And then on the health and wellness side, of course, I have health and wellness books. China Study by T. Colin Campbell and Never Be Sick Again by Francis. Gosh, what's his last name? What I've never written here. Raymond Francis. Both excellent books. I read them yearly. I don't want to give away what they're about, but they are about the connection between, China studies the connection between what you eat and your health from like a research perspective. Well written and interesting. Don't worry, it's not like a boring book. And then Never Be Sick Again talks about what I was saying earlier about this idea that wellness is all of the things. It's your health, it's your spiritual, it's your emotional, and he kind of goes through chapter by chapter to help you really think about these different areas of your life. So I've read them all multiple times, and each time I read them, either I'm reminded of something or I learn something new. So I love them, both of those books.
David Cowen is the founder and president of the Cowen Group. He puts on great events for legal ops leaders around the country and is building a community of some of the highest performing legal ops leaders out there. He is a big reader, and he offered up a variety of book recommendations that have influenced him throughout his career and that he thinks might be helpful to others.
Yeah, I mean, books are these living things that just keep going. You know, if you wanted to go back in time, I would say Ayn Rand, Atlas Shrugged probably influenced me as much as anything else in my entire life.
Interesting.
I would say followed by Dale Carnegie's, How to Win Friends and Influence People, followed by Keith Ferrazzi's Never Eat Alone, which changed my entire business model. From Good to Great by Jim Collins taught me the flywheel and how to stay true to, your own curiosity. And then there's like Everything of the Moment,
Yeah.
I mean, I could
You could go all day.
I could fill up a library, man. I think the more, I will say this to anybody who's listening, reading will make all the difference in the world for your life. And because it allows you to connect with people about stories that connect with them. If you want to connect with other people and you've read a book and you're like, oh my God, I read that book, you instantly have this moment of connection and this language. I can't emphasize it enough, however old you are, whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, or 50s, whether you've got kids and you're busy, like, read. There's just nothing else like it.
Absolutely. Joon Park is the chief legal officer at Extend, but he offers some slightly different recommendations. Earlier in his life, he received a master's in Chinese philosophy. That influenced one of his picks. He's also married to a 2024 Pulitzer Prize winning author and talks a bit about his wife's book during our episode and my question about books that he'd recommend for our audience. When we were talking before we got on and started doing the podcast, you mentioned that your wife just won a Pulitzer Prize for a book that she wrote. Can you tell us about that? Because I'm going to go order it. I think it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. So my wife is Liane Wu. She won the Pulitzer in the 2024 Pulitzer for biography for a book called Master Slave Husband Wife, and it's about this enslaved couple that start off in Macon, Georgia, and make their way north.
Mm-hmm.
But rather than following anything like the Underground Railroad, they actually go in plain daylight because she is so fair. Her complexion is so fair that she disguises herself as a disabled master, and her husband pretends to be her slave. And together they travel by train, by first-class coaches, staying at the top hotels, and escape to freedom that way. And it became a sensation once they reached the North because of the way in which they escaped. And so that's the story that she's telling in this particular. It's everything is true. The amazing thing about this book is it's creative nonfiction. It reads like a novel, but everything you read in it is factual.
Last up, but hopefully not least, for our 100th podcast episode, I was interviewed by my colleague Nakta, Akshay Verma's chief of staff. Nakta asked me for one recommendation, but like most of our guests, I offered a few. I picked 3 books that I'd read recently that I thought you might enjoy reading.
What is a book you would like to recommend to your listeners? And you can recommend more than one. I'm sure that's a hard one to narrow down.
I thought a bit about this question because I knew it was coming.
Makes sense.
I'll recommend a business book first. I have 3 books that I think will be all different and interesting for folks to read. The first book is a business-y book. It's called Give and Take. It's by Adam Grant. I may have mentioned it in conversation with other podcast guests. He looks at the sort of, he's a psychologist, like kind of a pop psychologist, but he's very smart. He looks at the sort of landscape and categorizes people in 3 ways. He says there are people who are givers. They're willing to give without any notion of reciprocity or getting something in return. There are matchers, people who are totally willing to give, but it's more like, I bought coffee this time, so I'm not going to tell you to buy coffee next time, but you should probably buy me coffee next time.
There's an expectation.
And then there's takers, people who don't give. I mean, we all know hopefully we don't have many people like this in our lives. We've probably all dealt with people like this before, right? We've encountered them before. People who just take are very sort of self-interested. And it's been a number of years since I read the book, so I'm not going to be able to explain the sort of like whole argument and all the research. But essentially he's looking at like, we know we probably don't want to be takers, right? But are like givers just chumps? Like, are we all being taken advantage of? And the conclusion in the research over the long run is the answer is no. Actually, like true givers are the ones who end up with the most and who are the happiest and who actually like oftentimes have the most money. And if you're listening and you've like read this book in the past week, you can probably poke holes in that summary. But
I'm gonna cue it
I
up.
I like carrying that with me in my own life, and I would recommend that folks read it. I don't read a lot of fiction. A friend and mentor of mine recommended a book that I read recently called The Last Days of Night. Okay. It's a very quick read. It's historical fiction. It's about Thomas Edison and George Westinghouse and their sort of fight to electrify America.
Literally.
And the interesting thing for lawyers, the folks who are listening are interested in the law, is that Paul Cravath, who started the firm now Cravath, Swaine & Moore, features very prominently because he was George Westinghouse's lawyer, and there's an IP sort of battle occurring. I think it's a fun read and like something that's a little legal related for our listeners. It was tough for me to pick like a nonfiction book to recommend for the audience. One that I like I subscribe to the New Yorker. I like long form journalism. I like that sort of journalistic style. Everyone Who Is Here Is Gone is about the sort of immigration crisis in America. I think that's a very important component of this political moment and what we're dealing with. And it's something that I didn't understand as deeply, perhaps, as some of the economic drivers or changes in Washington and Washingtonian norms that have happened. I read it before the election last year, and if you want to understand this political moment, I would highly recommend that you read it as well. That's all we've got for you today. I hope you're having a great summer. I hope you pick up one of these great reads on your next vacation and you can relax, maybe learn something, and it inspires you to listen to a few episodes of our podcast. Thanks so much for listening to this one, and hope to see you next time.